Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Manic Energy. I'm Ryan Swore, and today Katie and I are joined by Aaron Perrault, one of Lake Superior Consulting's engineering directors. I'm Ryan Swore, and this is Manic Energy, a podcast that dives into the fast-moving world of energy, business, and the people powering it all. From bold ideas to real-world innovation, we're talking breakthroughs, market moves, and the community shaping what's next. Whether you're building for the future or just here for the fun, welcome to the chaos. So Aaron, thanks for agreeing to be on the show with Katie and I, and me. Really appreciate having you. Had a lot of fun with you over the years, growing our business. I think it's always best to start by giving our viewers and listeners background as to who you are. Do you mind maybe just starting early career or what made you get into the energy industry in the first place?
You bet. Yep. Nope. I can do that. Went to University of Minnesota. I got a degree in mechanical engineering. So that's kind of my education background. Graduated the spring after 9/11. So I had a really tough time finding engineering jobs. The job market was not great, if you can imagine, at that time. So started work at a local compressor station, actually, for Northern Natural Gas as a operations maintenance technician. Didn't know it at the time. I was young, didn't really know what I was doing, but learned a ton, had a great experience, learned a lot of different field things that I use today still that I didn't realize I was even getting at the time. So that was my intro into the energy industry at that point.
So I don't usually interrupt, but assuming that there might be a listener out there that has never heard of a compressor station.
Oh, you bet.
What is a compressor station?
Yeah. So on a natural gas transmission system, there will be these huge compressor stations where they've got large engines, turbines, electric motors that are actually compressing the gas and moving it down the pipeline. So our office was at a compressor station. We also operated the pipeline in several directions in each way, 100 miles in each direction, basically, roughly. There'd be another team on the line somewhere up or downstream from there. So our team had many different duties, obviously maintaining the station we were at, responding to one calls, maintaining all the meter stations, the measurement locations on that in that area. We were on call a lot of times. That kind of rotated. Great experience, especially as a young person. It was actually kind of fun. Get a phone call at 2 a.m, have no idea what's going on. I answer the phone, try to figure out what's going on, what you had to respond to. A lot of times it was a winter, a heater at one of the meter stations would get blown out or whatever. You have to go relight it. But so all kinds of different problems.
You have tools and you got to get dirty?
Yep. So you'd have a truck at home, one of the work trucks. You'd have tools. You'd, depending on, again, what the call out was, you'd have to go respond and troubleshoot. And it was kind of fun.
Awesome.
Question, did your education, is that a lot of like hands-on learning or did your education help support that?
Not specifically.
Okay.
From the problem solving aspect,
sure,
I suppose. Yeah, it helped me kind of figure out how to walk through and troubleshoot what was going on. But not necessarily engineering work that I was doing in the field there. But again, learning as I went, how things operated, how things worked.
That was the introduction to the energy industry.
Energy industry, okay. Yep. So along with the normal maintenance work, operations work we did, we were doing a lot of projects at that time. It was the early 2000s, so all the new integrity rules were going in place on the midstream system. So we were adding launchers and receivers. We were doing different cutouts.
Launchers and receivers to do inspections on the pipeline.
To do inspections on the pipeline. Yes, thank you for helping me explain a little more detail on some of those. So, so new requirements to inspect the pipelines with inspection gauge tools. So you have to upgrade the system so you could actually launch and receive those tools and collect the data. So, got to see a lot of projects going on. Actually, I think my favorite things I got involved in, Northern Natural Gas had their own Stopple crews at the time, and they would go around and help with the outages for the different projects. So a Stopple crew would actually go in rather than shutting off valves that may or may not be in the right location. You use a stopple, which I'm not going to explain the whole thing of what a stopple is at this
Is
point.
that
but
what
I
you
can.
explained to me like a couple weeks ago? Where
We watched the video, right?
Yeah.
Where it goes in with the rubber stopper and you actually
Mhm.
shut off the line. You can bypass around and actually cut and do work on a pipeline while it's still operating,
Yeah.
basically.
So that customers like land or like homeowners,
it
the
maintains
city doesn't get
flow,
taken off of
correct. Yep.
fuel.
Yep. That's always the goal.
Mhm.
Everything you do is to make
Minimize
sure you're not
disruption.
cutting off
Mhm.
disruptions to the customer. Yep. So I got to work with that crew a bunch, which was great experience as a young, in my early 20s. They put me through the ringer. I was up on top of the stopple towers, helping them cut the pipe and insert the stopple fittings and everything. It was a lot of fun. Again, I didn't realize what I was learning at the time. Looking back at it now, very few people have those experiences. And I use it today. All the gas handling stuff we learned as far as where you had to isolate and blow
Safe
down.
operations.
Safe
Yeah.
operations of what you were doing to execute those projects. Yeah, it was really cool.
So then where did you go after that?
So after that, I wanted to use my engineering degree. So I did that I was there for about 3 years and then found a job actually down in Iowa with Fisher Controls on the new product development side, designing control valves. So again, in the industry, as well as many other industries, power, refining, all kinds of different industries that their products touch, our products touched. Very cool experience, different than operating the field. Now I'm in an office doing analysis. We were actually doing a bunch of different testing and finite element analysis and computational fluid dynamics to kind of fine tune old assumptions that were made on the design of these control valves 50 years prior that they'd still been using to design their valves to that point, right? So it was kind of cool experience. Again, we need to figure out how to make this part cheaper, better. This is an issue we see. How can we make better assumptions to fine tune what we're doing? So got to do that for a few years. For family reasons, we were having our first child, wanted to move back to Minnesota. So Fisher Controls is owned by Emerson Process Management. Sister company is Rosemount, who makes instruments. Again, same industries, very kind of alongside of the control valves. So did a transfer from Fisher Controls to Rosemount, which is in the Twin Cities. Worked on temperature transmitters. I did that. So my whole time in Emerson Process Management was about 10 years, all new product development, learned about certifications, explosion proof and intrinsically safe devices, how that all works, all the approvals that go on all these devices. Obviously a little bit about where they're used, how they're used. I got to troubleshoot, was at a site in Ohio, troubleshooting a housing that I had helped design, which was having problems, which is never fun as the engineer that helped design something, was used on an offloading site for rail cars directly in the steam. They were actually placing it directly in the steam that was coming off a rail car, and it was just too much humidity and it was causing problems. So we were able to change an O-ring and do a couple things. Again, troubleshooting. It was very cool, very fun, stressful at the time to be there in front of the end customer and trying to troubleshoot for them. But again, great experience. Got to see more things in the field, see how things were working, how people were trying to solve their problems, right? So very cool there. And then continuing on, got a chance to move up to Duluth area and take a job with Enbridge. So took a job in their major projects group on the mainline side. The first project I was on was in Illinois. We did, I can't remember now, 185 miles of 24-inch pipeline and across Illinois. Very good experience. Again, I hadn't done that on the engineering side, so I was learning a lot of new things. Working with consultants was new to me at that time. A lot of the field activities were new, so I spent a lot of time in the field. I went down and got to know the construction management crew, the inspection staff very well. Used them to learn what I could, which was really fun. Like, again, time in the field, got to understand how we cross roads, the importance of laying out construction workspace, because sometimes things just don't fit if you don't have enough space there as you're doing that. Got to learn all the things we do to be safe and install a quality pipeline.
And just to put that in perspective, your job site is moving. It's like you move every single day.
It's a
or very
10-mile moving assembly line, if you think about it that way. From the time they go in and clear and start laying pipe to when they're burying the pipe on the back end. You can think of it as a 10-mile moving assembly line. It is quite the impressive operation. So
and how many miles was that?
That was 185.
Is that one of the larger projects that you've been a part of?
That I've been a part of, that I've been very heavily involved in. Yes, I've been involved in a little bit longer ones, but not involved to the depth I was on that one.
And how long does that project take?
Well, I started in 2013 and we put it in service in 2016, I believe.
Okay.
Someone's going to watch this and call me on this and be like, you're wrong on the mileage.
We'll fact
check you later. It was a few years. Yeah.
Okay. Just trying to
anyhow, long
the story.
process.
Yep.
There's always delays, through permitting processes and trying to make sure we've got good deals with landowners to make sure everyone's understands what's going on and that we're doing things the right way. So
as you work through that assembly line that you referenced, you might encounter a different issue or barrier. What might those be?
They vary greatly. I'm trying to think of some of the ones on that project in particular. We had some issues at a few road crossings.
Okay.
The way you bore underneath the road to keep traffic going, yet still install a pipeline without open cutting or, digging a trench across the road. You're actually boring under the road. You're pushing the pipe or a pipe underneath the road through the native soils, and you're running an auger inside that, what's called a bore pipe. And the auger is pulling the material back out of that bore pipe as you're going. So as you're pushing, the auger's spinning, pulling material back. So you're creating a cavity.
Yep.
There's many things can go wrong while you're doing this if it's not done the right way. Again, it's, there's a lot of attention to detail that needs to happen as you're doing this. In this case, the auger got out past the end of the bore pipe. So it was pulling more material than it should have been in. And we had some subsidence in spots, which created issues underneath the road, of course. Not a great situation. So we had to work with the Illinois DOT, had to find where the voids were and get them filled. And again, try to make sure everything was safe, make sure traffic was still able to go through the area and do things safely. We're going to make mistakes. Again, it's how we respond to it and make sure that we're doing things the right way and in a good, safe manner. So the end pipe was installed. Everything's fine. The road was safe. It's all good. But again, it's one of the problems, right? As you go along, there's many different things that come up. So other items, welding's one of the big processes. As you go along, all of a sudden you'll start seeing some sort of reject issue. Not myself, but we'll bring in other specialists to make sure that we're identifying why it may be happening and find a resolution to it to make sure our welds are high quality.
And I think it's important to explain that. You say reject. That implies to me that you have a quality management system around it.
No, very good question. So there are inspectors on site looking at every weld visually, making sure the process is going right. And then after the weld's completed, there is a non-destructive examination. There's different forms of X-ray or ultrasonic testing that can be done to confirm that the weld is
an X-ray, just like when you go to the doctor. It's
correct.
The same thing.
Same technology. Yep.
To make sure it has high quality and it's going to last.
Correct. Yep. And you can identify tiny little cracks and defects or areas that weren't filled properly. Again, I'm not a welding expert, so I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but we have welding experts on our staff that help with those kind of things. Right.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the big ones that from a quality standpoint that, we've got the pipe in, the pipe should be good. That's all been tested as it goes along. Now we got to join it all to make sure that we've got a solid pipeline that we're going to hopefully use for many, many decades to come. So,
So then what next after that?
So
project that took a
we
few
got hung up in
years?
Enbridge. So
we got 10 more years to go.
Yeah, I know. So
that's okay.
Did
That's
that
good.
for a few years. Also at Enbridge, helped clean up that project and another one. So of course, as you go through a pipeline and install it, you're disturbing a whole area as you go along. It takes a year or two to rectify all the things that may have come up, working with landowners to make sure that they're satisfied. Again, trying to do right by the landowner to make sure we get their land back to the way it was, obviously with a pipe in the ground, but hopefully they don't even know it's there. So did that. And then I also had an opportunity to be a field engineer on a replacement project right in town here almost, right in Superior. We did about 17 miles, 18 miles. Again, I'm going to get called out on the mileage on it, but great experience there. I was a field engineer in the field every day in the field office, working directly with the construction crews and inspection staff and everyone. So great learning experience. Got to see a lot of different things.
So what are you doing as a field engineer?
Really a couple of things, making sure the construction process is following industry standards, best practices, Enbridge standards, which are a lot of times more stringent than industry standards. And just helping answer general questions that come up. Hey, can we do this? Is this okay? Sometimes it's, yeah, that's fine. Or no, you can't do that. You need to follow the spec. Here's what it says to do. So a lot of that stuff. And then addressing issues that come up. There are different things that pop up that you just can't plan on, until you go out and start digging or boring or whatever it may be that come up that you're just helping solve problems for the project to keep them moving. So, so did that. Through a lot of this, what I didn't mention is I worked very closely with many employees from Lake Superior Consulting. So Ryan, I had met you in that process, of course, Dave Hokinson and many others. And, as that field engineering opportunity was wrapping down, I recognized an opportunity at Lake Superior Consulting that I thought I would be interested in, maybe be a good fit for. So I reached out to Dave, and here I am 7.5 years later working at LSC.
So we'll get into the LSC journey in a minute, but did you, a couple questions or maybe one question on that. After you started, did you feel like we did a good job explaining who we were? Did you have a good idea as to what we did as an organization until you were here? Or before you were here is probably the better way to ask that.
I feel like I maybe did a little more than others just because I had an opportunity to work with the cathodic protection group in certain areas and the engineering group through Dave and a few others. But there were still some surprises, things that I didn't know you guys did or that we did now, right? And I definitely had a strong feeling that there were many people at Enbridge in particular, because that's where I had been, that saw LSC as a cathodic protection firm, or they saw you as a staffing firm because we had provided a lot of embedded staff on projects, right? So very different than what LSC actually was. And certainly is today. So
you started in the team. And what kind of journey through there?
So I started as the mechanical engineering manager in our facilities engineering group. So really, when you're back to my description, just brief description, when I worked at the compressor station, you've got compressor station, meter station, some other mainline valve sites and things like that along a pipeline that are inside the fence, right? So facilities, right? So
maybe if we can, the meter station. Just to find that, I like to think of that. Maybe I'll use an analogy myself. So as a consumer of power, at my house, I've got a meter that shows how much power I'm drawing, right? Kilowatt hours, or showing how much I consume, so they know how much to charge me. You're referring to something that's very similar, but on a very different scale and measuring something different, right? You're measuring units of natural gas that, for example, the city of Duluth is taking. From a transmission pipeline that's going across many states and countries sometimes.
And I might even go a step back further if that's okay.
Please do
a higher level on the industry. So you've got your upstream, which is gathering
exploration.
It's gathering whatever energy, whether it's oil or gas or some other liquid natural gas. It may be propanes. There all kinds of stuff we're gathering, right? So you've got the upstream processes, which are gathering those and sorting it out. And then they need someone to transport that, which is what is called midstream normally. Midstream really is transportation. We're governed by the Department of Transportation. And their midstream job is to take it from the upstream side and get it to a downstream user, which is where the meter stations come into play. So as you're moving that fluid and delivering it at some point, again, you need to measure it, like you mentioned. And normally at that point, it's passed over to a downstream company, which is actually delivering it to the homes. Mm-hmm. So you've got
natural gas in this case.
Correct. Natural gas in this case. Yep. So it's gathered, cleaned up, sorted out, basically all the different components that come up. I'm not going to get into all that, but once you get clean natural gas, it's moved, it's transported, measured.
Well, it's kind of like brought up in many different networks, many smaller pipelines.
Correct.
That feed into a central delivery point.
Yep.
And then, like you said, gets cleaned, dewatered, and then moved in a much larger pipeline and higher volume. And then once it gets to market, goes back into smaller pipelines to the consumers.
To actually go to the final user locations. Yep.
And so the midstream market is regulated so heavily because because there's bigger pipelines, higher pressures, consequence of failure is much more significant. So we have a lot more scrutiny and steps we take to ensure environmental protection.
You bet.
Safety of people and things like that.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I interrupted you.
No, you're good.
The meter station.
The meter station, yeah. So meter station is basically the custody transfer point of natural gas, in this case we'll talk about, between the midstream transporter to the downstream distributor, which is, again, selling it to all the local end users. Couple things happen there. Pressure's regulated down. Usually the midstream provider is shipping it at a very high pressure due to the compressor stations we talked about before. They're compressing that natural gas, and that's what allows it to move down the pipeline faster. You're able to move a lot of volume. And then, so it's the pressure's cut, and then it runs through a meter run, which is actually measuring how much gas is flowing through that site and is being used downstream somewhere. So again, that's how custody is transferred, and people get paid for the different work they're doing, and one step in the industry, right? So
what else have you done maybe since joining LSC? Direct engineering, facilities engineering.
So facilities
manager?
Engineering, and then I took on the role of director of pipeline engineering. Again, tying into my background, time at Enbridge. Had a group of engineers, CAD technicians, designers, as well as civil survey was tied into that. And really our role touched many different things. Obviously pipeline design, which we'll talk a little bit about. I might leave that one for a second. We do a lot of hydro test planning. So pressure test planning. As a pipeline or facility is built, you need to test it to make sure it's of high quality, make sure that things were built right. There's no leaks in it. So pressure testing is really one of the main ways that that's done. We've got specialists that focus in that area, understand the industry regulations and requirements. And then we've got specialists that do trenchless designs. We talked about road bore crossings before. There's also HDDs, or horizontal directional drills. We've got specialists that do designs for those. So HDDs, do I want to get into that?
Maybe just explain why.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? So think of it as a lot larger bore, like we talked about the road bore crossings. And it's not just straight. So we do those underneath large interstates, rivers, sometimes just environmental features that can't be touched for whatever reason. We'll actually drill underneath, and we'll go anywhere from 40 feet deep to, I've seen some that have been close to 150 feet deep, depending on what the feature is and what the geography is around it. So there are means and methods to drill a path. I don't like calling it a hole because it's never, everyone thinks of an empty hole. It's never an empty hole. We drill a path and pull a pipe through that path underneath whatever feature it is that we're looking at crossing.
And why do you do that rather than like reroute the pipe?
Oftentimes you can't reroute around because it's an interstate.
Sure.
It's something long and linear.
Yep.
That
Mississippi
Or a
River.
river.
Mississippi
you gotta
River.
get-
Yes. Yep. That's a lot of it is. Sometimes I mention environmental features. Sometimes there's something else that's even a worse thing to cross,
Sure.
like population center, a different environmental feature, something like that. So,
Or railroad.
railroad. There's a lot of different obstructions we run into, and this is where I'm going to probably jump back to pipeline design because a lot of what we do there is the routing, and there's a lot of things that go into that, things that people would never think that we ever talk about in a pipeline or a natural gas or oil company would ever talk about as far as routing and decisions being made.
But the goal is usually like, I mean, it seems like you would be balancing economics with safety and accessibility, and what are the drivers you see these days? Is it schedule? Is it cost? Is it safety? And has that evolved?
I think it's evolved. Obviously, I've only been doing this for a small time out of all the pipelines that have been built, but even in my time, it's evolved a little bit. There's a lot of discussion about driven by permitting, which is tied to environmental impacts for a lot of the route. That's what a lot of the discussion is on, is what are the permitting impacts? Because a lot of times that ties to timeline and just being able to cross and what the construction looks like. A lot easier to build in a open upland field than it is in a swamp, right? Easier, more cost effective. So a lot of routing decisions. That's one of them. On the environmental side, obviously we're always considering where people live, work. Anything we can avoid from a population standpoint is great. Just keeps the pipeline out of the way, keeps it further away from potential mechanical damage in the future, right? The closer you are to population centers, the closer you are to a road ditch, the more likely there are to be digging activities around. So things like that. Landowners, just working with landowners, who's receptive to work with, who is really against it and kind of in an opposition state. That comes into play a lot as we're routing. And then the financial aspects, which are really what you're looking at there is, all right, I've got a path. What can I do to the existing path to make it more efficient to construct? In other words, I don't want to have a 90 and a 90 and a 90. If I can either go straight across or go from manufactured 90-degree elbows to I can sweep this out a little bit and do it all with bends in the field, because you can bend, and most of the pipe bends are done actually in the field where you're just tweaking a little bit, a degree every few feet. You're moving it just little by little. So
the other aspect of that too is, it's a lot more accessible for the inspection technologies, right? So we can look at this for generations to come. It improves, it's not a 90-degree
quality in many ways. There's less welds. There's less. There's not a wall thickness change there because we're using the exact same pipe to install that. It's quicker. It's cheaper. You can use the automated welding processes. And it's safer because of all that, because of all the quality things that you're looking at. So, a lot of little different things we go through round and round. That's all right. As far as routing goes and pipeline design. So,
was there a couple of curiosities? Was there a difference in working for different operators? I mean, I'm imagining that given the timeline you were there, Northern Natural Gas was probably more natural gas. Enbridge Energy, at least at that time,
I was on the
was
liquid
probably
side.
More liquids.
Yep.
Was there a difference between, or are they very similar, or what were your experiences there?
Quite different. I was also in different roles. With Northern, sense, I was in the field. Enbridge, I was acting as an engineer. Some differences in that case. Fairly large companies, so a lot of decision-making process were fairly similar. You got a lot of people involved, a lot of parties that have a say throughout the process, rightfully so, to make sure that all safety, quality, environment, all the different aspects are addressed, right? So a lot of that's the same. The one thing that really was the same was the focus on safety and focus on quality from both companies. Now they approached them slightly different, but they were both, it was very, very clear in both cases that those were priorities to make sure that people were safe and that things were done the right way.
That's been my experience as well. One thing that kind of going back a little bit, and that's interesting. I mean, it's really like it's good to hear from somebody who's been in both of those companies and can speak firsthand on the attentiveness that goes into that. And I think that is reflected by the safety performance industry, generally speaking. But we had, I've seen at one point just the amount that goes into environmental restoration.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to like prop this up. I just remember being like shocked or flabbergasted in like percentage of project cost that actually goes into everything's built, everything constructed, probably even ready to be commissioned, but you know, quite a bit still left. What is it on average, you know, percent basis? And you're not speaking for Enbridge or Northern, just generally speaking from your engineering background that goes into that. It's probably going to change based on location and construction methodologies.
I'll be honest, I don't know from a straight cost standpoint, but from a time and effort standpoint, I can tell you it's significant. I had mentioned before in my time at Enbridge,
time is money. So that's probably why I see it
absolutely. You know, we built the pipeline that I was originally working on in Illinois. And then I had mentioned that I spent a year cleaning up those projects. And that's what that is.
It's going a year after it's done.
It's a whole year because depending on when you get installed and all backfilled and the pipeline operating, you've got to go through a whole cycle, especially in the northern part of the states, where a freeze thaw cycle, a spring cycle where you've got all the water runoff and everything, because you get all kinds of drainage issues off of what you've just freshly touched, right? You do disturb soil, so the soils are now loose and act different than the stuff around them, right? So naturally, you're going to have issues somewhere. So we do spend a whole year with a whole project team still monitoring that, out repairing those things. And then the year after, you still have a smaller, I'll call it a skeleton crew, that's still out responding to certain areas that just haven't been repaired right, haven't been, not necessarily not repaired right, just still causing issues, still has work to be done. Yep. So there's a lot of time and effort put into trying to get it back to the way it was before.
Yeah.
So,
or better.
Or better, you bet. There are cases where it certainly is a lot better than what we found it. So
your consulting journey, I'm curious, and you can give me as much of a hard time as you want in here, by the way. You've got free reign, to be honest. I'm curious, you know, are there things you learned after moving to the consulting side of the industry that you maybe wish you had known when you were still working for what are today our clients? I want to ask this question. I haven't heard your answer to this yet. But.
There are a lot of things, and I look back and I was really naive when I worked at Enbridge, not having been on the consulting side ever myself on a number of different things. I didn't know how to use a consultant first off, right? Like I didn't know all the little things that they could do for you, that they could peak shave, that they could pull in years of knowledge and experience, and frankly, experiences with other clients that you have no idea it's even there. You know, so I wish I'd have known that, because I would have asked more questions and leaned on more individuals to pull that information in from outside of just my small group I was working with, right? So
Katie's coming back and she's going to take notes on marketing. So, because I mean, if you two haven't connected, by the way, that's pure gold. Like we got to do a better job communicating that. It sounds like.
Yes.
Now I'm trying to remember what I just said, Ryan.
Yeah, you just said. I had asked a question about. You know, what are some of the surprises or learnings you've had since joining on the consulting side that maybe you wish you had known previously? And I think if I can summarize your answer, it was that, you know, you didn't really know how to use a consultant, or that there might be access to talent or industry or other operator best practices. And I kind of look at that backward as a failure, not a failure, but an opportunity for improvement on our part as consultants, not just LSC, but, you know, but broadly. Is all right, we can make sure we're better conveying that to our customers and to potential customers. But anyway, so what else?
So things like contracting strategies that I just didn't think through the right way when I was at Enbridge, where we're put in a position where we kind of have to. It's part of our day-to-day, really. So that I feel like I've learned a lot, the difference between T&M and lump sum, and when you should T&M something and when you should lump sum
like
something.
Like a fixed price and say, we'll do it for this much money.
Fixed price, you bet. Like things got to be fairly well defined to do a fixed price, especially in engineering work. Like inherently, you're engineering something. Still, there's unknowns, or you wouldn't be doing engineering work on it, right?
Yeah.
So there's very few cases where I see that it makes a lot of sense to do a fixed price on an engineering project versus T&M, where I did not think that way at all when I was on the Enbridge side, just because I hadn't had the experience and the understanding of going into a project with what you feel is a good scope. And that's probably the next one I'll talk about is scope definition.
Yeah.
But going into a scope where it's like, oh yeah, that's super defined. That should be easy. We can fix price that. But
and it's tough because
it's never that easy.
There's going to be a counterbalance to that though too, because at least when I've been part of many times, these companies are publicly traded that are our customers. A lot of times, spending what they say they're going to spend
is very important.
Is critical to their shareholders and their stakeholders.
You bet.
And so, I mean, there's an allure about fixed pricing. Even I've seen where we know we're probably going to pay more because you have to cover risk as a consultant.
Exactly.
However, we'll take the certainty over that, and then you just got to be dialed in. So it's interesting. It's always a dance, right?
Yep. But it is, again, inherently your engineering stuff. There's an unknown.
Yeah. Or you wouldn't do it.
Or you wouldn't do the engineering.
Yeah.
Yep. So
I always love looking back at, because I mean, you know me, I'm not an engineer by trade. And when we were working for our publicly traded parent, there was times we had a contracting standard where it was like, all right, I had signing authority, let's call it. So I could expose the organization, the broader organization, which is much larger than Lake Superior Consulting on its own. And there's standards around what I can sign, because if I take on a bad project, it can expose the company to significant risk, which is unacceptable.
Yep.
And so, as long as our contracts were in line with these standards, I had signing authority. When they were outside of those standards, however, it required approval beyond what was permissible for me to sign. And it was interesting. I remember we were doing a project where the language around this engineering contract we were signing was not in our favor. And I felt like we had negotiated everything we could have at the time with the operator of the company. It wasn't you as a client at the time.
Yep.
And it was like, all right, what do? We're at a stalemate. We really want and need this work. Like our careers, livelihoods is probably a better word. In some cases depend on it. And so we're having this conversation internally with individuals who don't understand engineering. And what we came back to, which I really appreciated, was really Hokinson at the time saying, or it might have been even you, but it was like, hey, listen, we're designing to code an engineering standard. We're not out just making things up. Now, how you get there is why you have engineers. It's not just automated where you push a button and it's in compliance. But at the end of the day, I think you really recognize like, hey, listen, we're not creating our own standards to design these facilities. There are regulated policies, procedures, standards. And we have to still engineer the system.
Yes.
But we're doing it not in a Wild West, but in reference to code. And at the end of the day, things designed to code shouldn't fail.
Yep.
And, or in many cases, I think you said more restrictive, or in some cases, operators define more stringent than code, to which you would design to those standards then.
Yep.
And what is the risk at that point, and is it controllable? And so we had some really good conversations around that, but I appreciated being educated. I just want people to understand that when you say engineering design, it's a dance between.
We're taking the structure that you're talking about, all the codes and standards, and applying it to a certain situation, right? Whether it's a long pipeline or an individual site.
Or an office building.
Yep. And making it fit for that situation, right?
Yeah.
So taking structure and trying to make something useful out of it.
I like it because you're doing the same, you're building knowledge, but the environment changes. You're not at the same facility every single day.
Correct. Yep. Which is one of the great things about consulting that I found. We get to see many, many different things, which is super exciting. Different problems all the time, which exciting, stressful, all of it. You gotta be willing to be okay with that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
It is an adventure compared to working on a big pipeline project at an operator where I worked on one project for
many years,
4 years.
Yeah. You're right.
So it's quite different.
I think back on it. It's like just thinking of all the states I've been to, the travel, the things seen around the country, but also, power facility, a nuclear power facility I've worked in, hydroelectric dam, many different types of mines, been on military bases, Coast Guard cutters or the ships You get to see their arsenal and how they actually navigate the lakes, the Great Lakes even. And probably more. I'd have to even keep thinking, but like you see all those different industries, manufacturing facilities as well.
You bet.
You get to see a lot of different things, and you have to really learn at an accelerated rate about what it is you're going to look at.
You're going to look at and how different operators do the same task in a different way, right? They have different preferences, different parts of the country. Some of the stuff we do in the north don't make sense in the south, right?
Yeah, you don't have the frost heave.
You don't have the frost heave to worry about. So you can get away with stuff down there you wouldn't get away with up here. So
from an engineering
standpoint,
perspective.
Exactly. Yep. So it's kind of fun.
Anything else on the consulting side?
The other one I was going to bring up would be scope definition. On the operator side, you're very high level. I'm trying to build a pipeline, right? You know, I've got a few sites and that kind of stuff. And then when it comes on the consulting side, you're in the details right away. Well, okay, if I'm doing that, it means I got to do X, Y, and Z. You got to give me more information on these things, right? So different level of detail. Again, if I'd known what I know now, I would certainly define projects differently.
Or have relied on a consultant to do that for you.
Exactly, which is always a great way to do it. Yep. We've helped in that several times, and it actually works really well. Because you already know the questions that need to be answered, right? If that's the right way to say that. So
that makes sense.
But so that would be the other big one that I think I learned coming over that I did not know very well when I was at Enbridge is how to properly scope a project to be sent over to an engineering firm, which is why there's often so many questions, right?
Yeah.
We're just thinking about the project in a different way, from a different perspective.
Has that changed how you communicate with clients?
It does, yeah. For sure.
In what way? Like, because I'm sure it's a fine balance in that communication.
I try to help them understand why we're asking the questions we're asking. We're not trying to be annoying.
Yep.
We're trying to help actually understand the project and make sure that we're meeting their expectations, which is always the whole communication, right?
Yep.
Like you always see those pictures of someone asked me to build this and I actually built this, right? Because the communication wasn't clear throughout the project. We're the first front line on that a lot of times because we're also the communication between the operator and whoever's building the thing, right? So if we don't communicate what the operator wants to the contractor to build it in the end, we're really way far off. It's the whole telephone, right? Telephone game. So trying to pass along project description and project requirements.
So what do you see maybe looking forward to the future? What do you see challenges, opportunities for our industry for?
Well, there's ongoing permitting challenges for sure. Just, working through process to make sure that the different permitting requirements have been satisfied. Certainly on the pipeline side, that's a big one where we're covering lots of geography and terrain and that's one I don't know how best to navigate that one better than what we're already doing today. It's kind of hard because you have to design part of the project to get in front of somebody to actually look at to permit. But then there's permitting requirements that come after that, which force you to change your design, right? So it's a long iterative process, and it does create a lot of uncertainty throughout a large project like that. So that's always a big one. And I think it's only getting more and more demanding.
Yeah. So. I think for me, like you think of cause and effect, right? Like that's, that results in projects where there's a demand for whatever resource by usually people or industry that goes unfulfilled because there's, the risk profile is maybe too large or the schedule is not fast enough.
Correct.
And to me, the fear is that there's not enough capacity being added to keep up with demand growth, which, we're seeing things like data centers, which we all believe, I think, are going to increase, demand for natural gas and other, resources. And I mean, at the same time, like people, I think I really appreciate you being on today because, I think you've been awesome to work with and a lot of fun to work with, professionally. And I think there's a lot of really good and people that men and women that are really care about safety. Like I know you are a conservationist, outdoorsman.
Yep.
Like preserving
Yes.
the environment is important to you. And I think that's why I'm not trying to speak for you, but appreciate being part of this job where you can help ensure that. But there are varying perspectives and disagreements about, and those are always going to happen. And I love hearing both sides. I think everybody's got a valid point in concern for this type of industry because it does present risk. At the same time, I think we all as Americans deserve access to clean, affordable, reliable energy because it really is the economic engine that drives everything else. So, it's like, how do you balance all those things together? And I think as long as we know that there are good people that, have education and experience that are designing this infrastructure safely and care about the same things, I feel like there's a path forward from that. As far as permitting, I agree, but I don't think we can control either of those things. Nope. It's just a matter of doing the responsible thing.
Doing the right things to get through the process. So kind of what you're saying, our industries fuel the growth of many other industries. Mm-hmm. If we slow our industry down, it's not for the growth of pipelines. It's to grow other industries and other technologies that we're trying to do, right? Mm-hmm. But it has to be done responsibly, which is one of the main reasons I've stayed in the industry. I really want to make sure it's done right.
You can have an impact.
I really feel like I can have an impact and make sure that it's done right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be an ongoing challenge, but also opportunity. And we'll fight all the battles in terms of making sure things are done safely and effectively. And I love that you said that was what the priority is. And I guess any other questions that you have for us or things you want to ask us about?
I don't know if I have any questions.
You're not willing to put us on the hot seat?
Right.
I didn't. Yeah. I didn't come prepared with questions for you. I apologize. Right. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being on, Aaron. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.
And we look forward to maybe having you again someday.
Yep.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of Manic Energy, where the only constant is change. If you're fired up, do us a solid. Follow the show, leave a quick review, or send it to a friend. Got questions, ideas, or a topic you want us to dig into? Drop us a line at the link in the show description. Thanks for riding the current with us. Until next time, stay charged.